All right, thanks everyone for joining and good afternoon. We are doing a session today on the tools and services offered by AWS for generative AI and how you can use and leverage those tools for your business use cases. So I'm Juzer Ali. I work as a solutions architect here at Royal Cyber, and I'm joined by Abhishek, who's going to be helping me out today as well with this session. He also works as a cloud solutions architect here at Royal Cyber. Uh, so this is the agenda for today's session here. We're going to talk about what generative AI is and what are some of the AWS services that you can use to leverage generative AI services that can help you deploy your models or use pre-trained models, and how you can integrate them with your own business applications. And then we have some nice demos planned for you, which basically show you how these different AWS services for AI and ML can be used to basically deploy these models and use them with your own data. So very quickly, we are Royal Cyber. We have a global presence in multiple countries, and we offer solutions in enterprise modernization, e-commerce. We have our own products as well in the domains of cybersecurity and automated testing. And we have more than 2,000 people across the globe. So what is generative AI, right? So this is a new type of AI based on foundational models, which can help you create new content and ideas, right? And content can be form of any media like text, video, audio. It can be trained on multiple inputs, and it can generate multiple different types of outputs as well, right? And it's basically powered by large language models, which are already pre-trained on large amounts of data, right? So that's what generative AI is in a nutshell. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well, right? So this is what the journey the foundational models has been, right? From the time that we started using like computers for business rules processing, we everything was done by hand in the 60s, and then machine learning came around in the 60s, where the rules were learned, but the features were hand designed. And then we went in the realm of like feature engineering, where the features are also learned, right? And then came deep learning, which basically led to supervised learning, and there were hierarchy of features as well, and not just like a flat level features. And then we have foundational models where we have, basically very large set of unlabeled data and a small set of labeled data, right? And this can be used to, drive things like generative AI to generate content based on, text input or audio input or image input. So this has been like the growth of generative AI so far, right? So this is basically showing the number of parameters and features that have grown over the years, right? So in 2017, we had the transformers with around 65 million parameters. And then, you can see that the growth has been exponential through time, right? We had GPT-2 around 2019, and then GPT-3 came around 2022, and you can see the number of parameters rising exponentially to 1 trillion almost. And it's only been growing, right? So here, I'm sure most of you are using generative AI in your workflows today. So just had like a very quick poll to see where are you in your journey in generative AI use cases. So we talked about how it works, right? Basically, the core of this is foundational models, which are large language models. They're already pre-trained on massive amounts of data, right? So they're able to learn like a wide, range of tasks, including text generation, image generation, video generation, question answering, right? So they can basically centralize information from different kinds of media. You can basically feed a text, image, video, and it's going to basically learn from that input. And you might already be using it, and there are like many different kinds of use cases for generative AI. You can use it for text generation, Q&A, summarization of texts, audio generation, now image generation with different kind of models that are popping up, uh, like DALL-E, for example, and video generation. So companies are already using this. Many enterprises are already using this in the domains of communication. For many of these chatbots today are powered by generative AI. The automotive industry is also using it. Healthcare is also using it for summarizing patient data. We have been helping customers, manage that as well. uh, financial domain, and also the chip manufacturing uh, industry. So basically, all the industries are using generative AI and machine learning in some way or the other, right? So its use case only going to grow with time. So these are some of the leading foundation models. GPT is pretty famous, used by ChatGPT for text generation. There's DALL-E and Stable Diffusion. This is basically used for image generation. So you can give it input as text, and it's going to generate out an image for you. So there are different type of workloads depending on where you are on your ML journey, right? So if you're pretty advanced, you might want to just build your foundational model from scratch. The cons might be that it can prove to be costly. You also need expertise in developing those models, and can be time consuming. The other type of user would be like a model consumer, right? So it can already use generative AI services which is provided by different vendors. For example, OpenAI, they provide their APIs for using ChatGPT. So you could be just a consumer. And then third user could be like a model tuner. So you can use basically a publicly available model which has been trained on some data, and then fine tune that model on your own data, and that can basically work with your enterprise data. So there are different types of workloads for generative AI. So you might be wondering, what kind of foundational model is right for my use case, right? So here you have to ask yourself some questions like, what type of tasks do I need to perform using this model, right? What is the input that this model is expecting? What kind of output do I need? Uh, what is the data set? How large is the data set that this model needs to be trained on, right? So if you can answer some of these questions, there are some publicly available resources. For example, this Helm service by Stanford University. So you can go there, and what they do is they benchmark these different models against different types of inputs and outputs, and then they publish these results. So you can go there, you can look at what kind of inputs you have and what kind of outputs you're expecting, and based on that, you can review their benchmarks to select the model that best meets your needs. So we've kind of like talked about what generative AI is, what are some of the general use cases, and what type of different workloads can it serve. Now let's just switch gears and talk about how you can use generative AI on the AWS platform, right? If you're already using the AWS platform for running your workloads, there's many services that AWS provides that you can basically leverage to quickly integrate with your existing data, and quickly deploy these models, whether it be your own models or publicly available models, right? So the different services that AWS provides for machine learning, and specifically for generative AI, there's this AWS Amazon SageMaker service geared towards machine learning, which can basically provide you like a complete online environment and an IDE to build your own models, select pre-trained models, and even test them, train them, and even deploy them to production. So like an all-in-one IDE for all your machine learning needs. It's a managed service. Um, then we have the Amazon Bedrock service. This is geared more towards generative AI, so it also provides you access to, easily build and deploy generative foundational models, right, for generative AI. So it is kind of at the heart of, some of the services that are, provided by AWS, like the SageMaker service and the Code Whisperer service, right? So this is basically like a generative AI-based code generation tool that developers can leverage to easily generate snippets of code. And they offer plugins for your favorite IDEs like VS Code, or any other IDE that you might be using. So this is basically the AWS machine learning stack, right? So if you are pretty experienced with machine learning, you're comfortable building your own models and training them and deploying them, you can start at the hardware, the infrastructure level, right? So they provide instances and hardware which are geared towards machine learning tasks. So they provide the inferentia and the TRN models instances that can help you save costs and easily deploy your models and test and train them. Then you can move up if you want like more of a managed service from AWS. You can use the AWS SageMaker service. So here you don't have to worry about managing your infrastructure or spending time on building and deploying your models. You can just use this managed service. It will do all the heavy lifting for you. You just pick your models, train them, deploy them, all from the SageMaker interface, right? And then there's these AI services like the Code Whisperer service, which like at the very top level, can be used out of the box for code generation and other generative AI purposes. So this is just more like detailed into the infrastructure stack for AI that is offered by AWS. They offer different types of instances like the Inferentia and the Trainium. Both have their pros and cons. And basically the point is that if you were to deploy this on regular EC2 instances, you might incur a lot of costs and you might not get as much performance. So these are like fine-tuned hardware instances for machine learning type workloads. And then within the SageMaker, service, there's the Jumpstart service, which can basically gives you access to like a wide library of pre-trained models that you can just go in and deploy quickly and start using them right away with just using a few, clicks. And this will be like the focus of our demo today as well. We will show you how you can start from scratch, use a SageMaker service, browse for a publicly available open source model, deploy that model, and then basically create like a chatbot application yourself to interact with that model. So we'll show you all of that in our demo today. And then we also talk about how you can then fine train that model on your own data. So this is where the advantage of AWS will come in, that it'll make sure that your data remains private within your own VPC. It's not used to train any models at all, right? So it's all private and encrypted. So ChatGPT is available as a public service, right? It's available to anyone. It's already pre-trained on data. And while they do mention that any input that you send is not going to be used to train the models, but again, it's in the public domain, so you're not really sure what's going on with your data, right? So here, if you're deploying these models yourself, it's going to be deployed in a private VPC, which nobody else has access to. Not even AWS can access that. The instances that are going to be used, the VMs or servers that are going to be running the models, they're going to be using encrypted storage, so nobody else can read that data. And also your own data might be stored in like an S3 bucket, which is already encrypted with your own KMS keys. So again, providing another layer of protection. So nobody can read that data. So nobody can basically, learn from that data either. So it keeps your data secure and it's not used by anyone to train their own code. So yeah, we talked about the code restore service as well, which can basically help developers quickly develop and prototype their applications and generate code using just textual input, and it can generate code snippets for you, and also integrates with tools like Visual Studio Code or any other IDE that you might be using. So I think we already touched on this, like why use generative AI on AWS. So there are some benefits that you get. You get the flexibility, right? So AWS already provides like a very good library of pre-trained models that you can choose from. You can easily build and deploy your models using some of the services like SageMaker that we talked about. And security, I think we covered that as well, that everything is encrypted. It doesn't leave your VPC and network, so it's secure by default, right? And then you can really save on costs if you use something like the SageMaker service, which basically takes away the undifferentiated heavy lifting of managing your own infrastructure to deploy these models. It's all self-managed by AWS, right? So this results in low effort, and the final point is the integration, right? If you're already in AWS shop, you already have your data sitting in S3 or RDS or any other data source in AWS. These services like SageMaker make it really easy to integrate with those services and basically, consume that data from within AWS without leaving the private network. So we'll switch gears and head over to the demonstration. So I'm just going to go a quick overview on this. What we're going to be doing is and I think I mentioned this before as well. So what we're going to be doing is we will start with the AWS SageMaker service. We'll show you how to start, select an available open source model, deploy that model, and then integrate it with like an application like a chatbot. So we're going to be making use of various AWS services, and Abhishek will talk more about this architecture, and he's going to walk you through the actual live demo.
We come to the demonstration phase. So what we are going to be doing is deploying a publicly available Hugging Face model, Hugging Face community provided model, which is a Plan T5 Excel foundational model. And we'll be deploying the notebook using that. And here we are using making use of Amazon Lex chatbot for the user to like talk to the agent, and that also in between you have a layer of the AWS serverless function, which is the Lambda function, which actually invokes the SageMaker endpoint. And you can see at the end you have the S3 bucket where you're actually storing all your private data, which can be encrypted with your own customer master keys. So AWS SageMaker is a complete ML ops platform from AWS for training, deploying, and putting into production your foundational training models. So if you're first starting out with SageMaker, you'll have nothing set up. So first thing is you're going to create a domain. The domain is like, it will create the backend. You'll have the EFS file storage where you will have all your files stored, and it will also like have all the user profiles created. And it also like gives a capability like multiple users can be part of a profile, so they can like share the data amongst themselves in the same workspace. So here, like I have created my own domain, and okay, second, it's always good to have MFA. Yeah. So once you are in your domain, you'll have a user, and from that user, you can actually go and launch the SageMaker Studio, which is the IDE for the whole development for the model training and deployment. Yeah. So right now I'm in the SageMaker IDE, which is called SageMaker Studio. And here I can like navigate to Jumpstart, which has the collection of pre-trained models. So you can see they already have some industry specific models solutions provided, and they also have models for specific use cases like text generation and image generation and all. So today I will show you a demo using a text generation model, which is called the Plan T5 Excel, which is provided by the Hugging Face community. Yeah. So once you're trying to deploy the model, you'll have to select on which instance type you have to deploy the model. You can like go to, you want bigger or smaller instance types, and you have to specify the endpoint name. This is important because you're going to use this endpoint in the future to invoke your running model. Yeah. And over here, if you go back, you'll have also the security settings, whether you want to use your own permission set, own IAM role to deploy, and whether you want to use your own existing VPC in which to deploy the model in. And here, if you're storing your own custom data sets, it is in an S3 bucket, and which key to use for encrypting the data. So all these, so this is what the benefit of SageMaker is. You're going to own the whole data over here, and you'll click on deploy. So deployment would take like 10 to 15 minutes. So I have already one model running, so I will go to that. Yeah. So you can see this is my model, which I've already deployed, and you can see like it is in service and it is operational and ready to respond to the requests. And here you can see like this model is text to text generation. It's like chat GPT. You ask questions and gives responses. And this is the ARN which I use for invoking this endpoint. And this is like deployed on an MLP 2x large instance. And here I've left the default security settings as it is to make things simple, but you can see you can customize it a lot to how you want it to be like. So one way is to use this endpoint directly from the studio. So what you'll do is you'll just like open the endpoint from the notebook, and here you have it running. So you can just run all the cells over here, and it will restart it and it will just run everything. So you can see it's star means it's like hasn't come to this stage yet. It's going to go through all these stages, and at the end you'll have the it asks the question like, oh, here there's a text input called tell me the steps to make a pizza, and over here it responds to here. So this is good if you're doing the development part. You can test out with your data whether it's running fine or not. But to use it in enterprise, you might want to like make use of a chatbot to interact with this model. So here for this, we go to a service called Amazon Lex, which is the AWS's chatbot app service. Yeah. So I already have one bot created, which makes use of the deployed model. This chatbot has no information of its own. So every time you ask a question, it's going to call that SageMaker, the notebook which is deployed and running, to answer back to the user. Yeah. And so it makes use of a framework called LangChain. That's a tool which makes it easy for us to like talk with the LLM models. Yeah. So also like this has at the backend, it has a Lambda function, which actually goes ahead and invokes the SageMaker notebook. So here I can just test it out. And here you have the whole running model, which actually interacts with your uh, SageMaker notebook. Yeah. So if I can just ask like, what, tell me about. And it's going to query, it will send a request to the SageMaker endpoint, and it is going to get back the answer. And here it comes back to the user. So this is in a foundational model. It's called like prompt, and you get back the answers. So you have a field called prompt engineering, which is all about creating prompts and getting back the answers. Yeah. So one thing is sometimes you might see like the data is not correct. And at that point is when you're going to fine tune the data to your requirements. Um, so you also have an option to train the model with your own data set. And for getting the data, you will kind of like use the S3 bucket, and you will tell like where the data set is located, your custom images or your custom like text files, which has your proprietary company information. You might want to store it there, and then you can again like deploy the training model, which will integrate your own custom data with the pre-learned models to improve the accuracy and performance to your industry needs. And this is where this will be important for fine tuning. And this is how you'll be doing it. We created an AI chatbot which uses Amazon Lex, and that at the backend invokes a callback function, the Lambda serverless function, which invokes the SageMaker notebook. And the notebook can have like your own custom private data where which is encrypted and it's in the security secure. And like one of the advantages of using AWS is like they have their own custom chips, which we talked about, AWS Trainium and AWS Inferentia. Those are like inbuilt custom silicon chips which they created, and you can like save on the training cost through that using those. And this is where we come to the first business use case where customer support company has reported like they reduce on their cost just by the using Amazon SageMaker for hosting their AI models because of the all the training costs they save through using the Amazon provided instances. Yeah, and they Amazon SageMaker also has something called a multi-model endpoints where you can host like more than one model per an instance. So you don't have to have like a one-to-one. You can have like many models running on a single instance. So you can have actually more cost savings using that. Yeah. And MMEs also have like you can easily scale up and down your model, and that's like more cost savings also. Yeah. And this is another use case where leading consulting company reported like they improved their developer productivity through the use of generative AI. So here they use like Amazon SageMaker for to accelerate their own coding in their organizations. And as a result, like they could focus on the other areas for the improvement, like security or cost optimization, based on all the time saved. Yeah. This is something which we showed in the demo, like how you would actually use the SageMaker. Here, like you have a users interacting with an API gateway, and that interacts with the Lambda function at the backend, which invokes the SageMaker notebook, and you might have your private artifacts in the S3 bucket. So SageMaker is a complete MLOps platform from AWS. If you are an AI or data science engineer, you don't care about what infrastructure I want to deploy my code in, or what if it's secure or not. And there are a lot of questions you might think, like the networking aspect of it. I just care of deploying my model. And that's what AWS SageMaker is, like the out-of-the-box solution, which takes care of everything. It also has recommendations where, like, if the instance type you are using is too small or big for your use case, it can actually recommend you to move to a bigger instance or something, which would be like for better in your production use case. So it kind of like makes it easier the life of the AI data science engineers. Yeah. This is one more use case. This is also similar to what we showed. So there's a customer support service. He will ask questions to a chatbot, and the chatbot would like interact with the your foundation model, which is running in SageMaker. And you might have your company data in maybe S3 buckets or RDS or Redshifts, Amazon Redshift. And so the foundation model will generate the query based on the human question which the agent has asked, and it will generate the query and retrieve the information